All right, what is up, everybody? We are back for another weekly Wednesday live Q&A. So we're going to dive right into things. Today's topic was actually open questions. As I always do on Wednesdays, I kind of leave it up to my Facebook followers to ask me questions, and there are some good ones today. So for the past so many weeks, I've actually had specific topics, so I figured I would just kind of open it up to everybody and let them have it. So we had really good questions this week, as we always do. So we're going to go ahead and get to those. And starting off, Bronwyn had a really good question. And she said, how do you pick a federation/show that you want to compete in? What should you look for? And what should you keep in mind? And what stands out? So I see Bronwyn's already tuned in here. So let's see, we'll go with the first one, I guess. How do you pick a federation or a show you want to compete in? First and foremost, I would really do your research on the different categories in each organization. Just because there's been some recent changes, obviously, within the sport of natural bodybuilding. For instance, like now they have a classic bikini look. And classic figure. So you just want to make sure the organization that you choose has the category that you want. So for instance, Bronwyn is a regular bikini competitor. She probably wouldn't want to do the classic bikini. So find an organization first that has the category that you want to compete in. Secondly, I would look for a geographic location, especially as an amateur, because there are shows across the United States, and really, especially for first-time competitors, I don't really recommend going super far out of your way to compete, honestly. So if you can stay within maximum of 3 to 4 hours. Honestly, just save a little bit of money, save some travel, don't have to fly in your first show. I would try to remain as local as possible. And then another one, I would say, as far as picking a federation. Now there are quite a few federations. There's something stupid I don't want to throw out any numbers, so I'm not 100% sure, but just an unreal amount of natural organizations out there. So obviously, if you're a natural athlete, you would want to compete in a natural organization. If you're an enhanced athlete, then just stick to the enhanced organizations. So choosing an organization is a little bit easier, especially as a whole, natural and enhanced, or I should say untested. Don't everybody get butthurt on me there. But as far as sticking within natural bodybuilding, there are some that are more competitive than others, some that are larger than others, particularly on the East Coast. You have the OCB, the NANBF, and then really the ANBF on the East Coast is kind of big. Here in the Midwest, it's not as much. So really just finding a show, do your research, and maybe look back at previous shows, see what the competitors look like, see what the size of the show was, reach out to the promoter and see how many people have already signed up for that show. So that's kind of things to look for. I think I jumped ahead on her question. So she said, what do you look for? What you should keep in mind? A number one thing for me is always look back at previous show pictures. So many of these promoters have pages where they promote their show, obviously, whether it's on Facebook or it's a website. I always look at the lighting for these shows, and if somebody has absolutely terrible lighting, don't go to it. Just run away, run as far as you can, because if a show has terrible lighting in the past and it hasn't improved, then that's something that you're going to want to find as a show with good lighting. Obviously, a promoter who is very responsive and answers all the questions that you may have, that's always a good sign, especially if they're timely. If they don't get back to you for days and days and days, then that might be a reflection of how they are going to run their show. So that's also something to keep in mind. I did see that Matt had a comment on there. Email the promoter. Matt Jackson is a promoter, and he's definitely one to reach out to if you are located in the Midwest, if you're looking to compete. So yes, he's a promoter. He loves to hear from people. All right, so Bronwyn, that kind of wraps up your question, and we're going to dive into the other ones that rolled in. Now, Jeff, hitting hard, Jeff Cook. Hit me hard with this one. He said, at what point Are you close enough to a contest to start changing your diet midweek? 14 weeks, 10 weeks, 6 weeks, etc. When is it too late, assuming that you're already on track to the point, to change things up because of a stall in weight loss? So Jeff, at the very end, I would say I would let it ride as long as possible without having to make unnecessary changes. I would say that that 8 to 6 week mark is probably where you're going to want to start making bi-weekly changes if necessary. Because like anywhere further out than that, like you still have a lot of time to play with, but when it gets to 2 months and you're falling behind and your weight stalls, that's where I would kind of reevaluate bi-weekly. I happen to weigh myself daily, so I can kind of see, what's going on. And if I notice a trend midweek where my weight's going up, it hasn't, but just say, for instance, that's when you can make a change, let's say on Wednesday or Thursday, maybe you weigh in on Sunday and then on Wednesday. So that's kind of something that you can do, but I would let it ride for at least 6 to 8 weeks out before you start making too large a cuts. I mean, I know that, you want to get ready for the stage, but still, that's quite a long time. And especially for people who are used to longer preps, like yourself, like myself, we can still do a lot of damage in 8 weeks, just because some people literally prep themselves for like 12 weeks. So if we could just fine tune it in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and somebody can do a whole prep in 12, I think we should be fine. So just kind of let time play out a little bit longer before you start making those bi-weekly changes. All right, Tommy asked, should bodybuilding be an Olympic event? And Tommy, you know what? I did see that that Natural Bodybuilding is Alive page mentioned that this week as well. I don't know if you got it from them, but yeah, they're on top of things as far as the relevancy for bodybuilding in the Olympics. So I'll give you my opinion on it. And I really would like to see bodybuilding in the Olympics. Obviously, it would have to be natural bodybuilding. Obviously, it would have to be WADA approved. Or I should say WADA tested. So, I could see it eventually being in the Olympics, but I think that, it's going to be a stretch because bodybuilding as a whole really has a negative connotation when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs. And obviously, the Olympics doesn't want any shit when it comes to their athletes taking drugs. I mean, there's that whole controversy, with a curler failing a drug test. So, I mean, and this is my honest opinion, I think if there's a lot of bodybuilders that, if bodybuilding were to get into the Olympics, it might blow up in the IOC's face. Just because so many people would probably fail. Now, there are ways to get around that, obviously. I would hope that they would do a polygraph test like we all do in the natural organizations. I would hope that they would take a urine test. And I would actually, third, like to see a blood test. I think that would be great, and that would kind of weed out all the people that are potentially cheating. I would like to see it happen by the Olympics that are going to be in LA in 2028, for those of you who are wondering. I would like to participate in said Olympics, but will it happen? I don't know. I'm going to keep dreaming, but I'm not going to hold my breath, so I'm just going to kind of keep doing what I'm doing. If bodybuilding magically works its way into the Olympics, I'll try to do everything in my power to talk to the right people to see if I can influence them. I know that the NPC/IFBB, mainly the IFBB, has tried before, and Joe Weider. The only problem with that is that obviously everybody and their brother who competes in the IFBB basically is on drugs. Not saying everybody is. So that negative connotation is going to be a very hard one to jump over. I've heard the argument that bodybuilding is not a sport. I disagree on that, just because there are other subjective things that get brought up in the Olympics, such as like diving and figure skating and like ice dance, that kind of shit. So if there's some subjectivity in that, I don't see why bodybuilding, if it has like, a symmetry around that scored, a muscularity around that scored, and a conditioning around that scored, you could score rounds and it could easily add up. Will your average everyday person really want to watch bodybuilding? Will it draw a huge crowd? I don't know. I would like to see it get a shot, but I think it might be a pipe dream. But we could keep hoping. All right, Leah asked, and I'm just laughing at Matt and James's comments. They know what's up. But Leah asked, going on vacation in March, more likely I won't be able to work out every day or possible any day. What would be your best approach to macros / lifting if I get a chance? So Leah, I shot a YouTube video on this, and I think I did a Q&A on this a couple weeks back. So go ahead and check out those YouTube videos, the replays. But I will answer it quickly here. I would say just try to be as active as possible while on vacation. As far as macros go, I mean, if you're going to be gone for a whole week, like obviously you're not going to be bringing your food scale with you. So I wouldn't stress too much about it. Just do your best job to estimate. And as far as working out goes, I mean, 1 week off from the gym totally is not going to kill you. You might gain a little bit just from the decreased activity as far as like not weightlifting. But if you make it up in other things, depending on where you're going, what you're doing, it could obviously easily balance out. If you're just going and laying on a beach the whole time, your activity level will be down. So maybe we'll have to decrease macros during that time, but shoot me an email and we will cover that at a later time. Lydia asked, using use of HIIT circuit training or HIIT fitness classes for HIIT sessions during contest prep. So what Lydia is getting at, and I feel like what most gyms have, is some kind of HIIT style of group class. It's very popular just because it's promoted that it burns more fat in a shorter amount of time. My only issue with it, and I feel like it's at a lot of gyms, is that, the class is, 45 minutes or an hour or however long it is. So it can be, kind of a long time to do. So, if you're assigned to do like 15 minutes a HIIT or 20 minutes a HIIT and the class is, over and above that, what do? Just like walk out of class, or do you stick around and do the whole thing? And obviously, depending, I can't speak for a lot of these, places, but what is the intensity like? Is it true HIIT training, or is it just kind of a slight dialing up and a slight dialing back? If you were to do, I understand why people like it because it's a group class, a little bit more fun than going on a bike, than doing sprints. But at the end of the day, like, you have to find what's most effective. So I would say that that's something that you have to be mindful of, is just, are you really pushing, your VO2 max to the 90 plus percentile like it's supposed to be when you're performing HIIT in those classes? If the answer is yes, stick to it, but just be very mindful of the time frame. All right, let's see here. Lydia also asked another one. Recommendations for training through knee pain, squats, and leg press seem to be super taxing on my joints. So Lydia, I'm really glad that you asked this question. Obviously, a lot of you who know me personally know that around this time last year that I was really struggling with knee pain, particularly my patellar tendon, and I couldn't squat for a very, very long time. I barely trained legs at the beginning of the year, which was a problem for a bodybuilder. Luckily, I've made that time up, and my legs are doing fine. But what did I do? Recently, I've switched. Like today, I squatted heavy. If anybody saw me squat on Instagram, I squatted heavy today. Heavy, at least for me, 340 pounds for sets of 6. But before I do that, one, I make sure that, I dynamic stretch, and I do that normal stuff. But secondly, before I do any working sets of squats, before I even touch the bar, I am actually doing leg extensions. And I do about 3 to 4 sets of moderate leg extensions, 12 to 15 reps, and just kind of gets the blood flowing into the joints around the muscle and gets everything going. And then I go over to the bar, and then I start with the bar, and then a 45, and then 185, and then 225, 275, and then I work my way up, obviously, to my working sets. So it's just making sure that we're really properly warmed up. Obviously, I am taking like Core Flex. That's the only joint supplement I'm taking at this time. So I'm really evaluating how to properly warm up. You just have to ask yourself that. And then I've really liked doing leg extensions, not like taxing leg extensions, but just getting in some good working sets of leg extensions, just kind of get everything warmed up. Obviously, just making sure your form is right on the squats, on the leg press, your foot placement is correct. That's something else to be mindful of. But I really would recommend anybody who has been fighting knee pain or just preventative, just to do your leg extensions before you squat. Thank me later. Julie asked, and I saw that Julie just tuned in. She said hello. She asked, if you have an over-dominant body part for your division, is it okay to decrease frequency or intensity training that specific body part? So those of you who do not know, Julie is a top bikini pro competitor. And what she's probably getting at is potentially, I'm going to take a guess and say either her glutes or her shoulders, because she put up a nasty shoulder pic the other day, and she might be referring to either one of those body parts on her, because those are probably the most dominant body parts. Is it okay to dial back frequency or intensity? I would say yes, absolutely. I mean, I feel like bikini is the only one where, they really encourage you to have bigger delts and a bigger butt. And Julie said, and biceps too. So yeah, I mean, you could dial it back there for a while. I know some people are going to hate me for this answer, but I didn't train arms for like a year because they were, in my opinion, disproportionately large. And I didn't train them for a year. I mean, like I did back exercises, I did chest exercises that worked my arms indirectly, but I did no direct arm work for an entire year just because my arms, in my opinion, were too large. I spent a lot more time trying to work my chest, my shoulders, and my back as opposed to my arms. I feel like it benefited me, but that's because they were disproportionately large. With Julie, if she thinks her shoulders are too big or her arms are too big, Julie, I personally think that your biceps are too fine. Your biceps are fine. I don't know why I said it like that, but your biceps are fine, especially for bikini. And really, Julie, I think that your physique is pretty good. It's not overpowering. I think you have a nice balance. But yes, if, for example, a bodybuilder has massive legs, there's quite a few guys out there that I know who legs are way too big for their frame. They should dial back at least the frequency on their leg training. Train them once a week. Train them once every 10 days, for goodness sakes. And work on building your upper body. Like, at the end of the day, if you keep working on your dominant body parts, especially if they're like legs, you're just going to make your physique disproportionate to the max. And it's very unfortunate. And you see guys with the inverse, huge upper bodies and tiny legs. And I've seen it more, with guys with big legs, and it's great to have big legs, but you're never going to win a show with just big legs. You have to be well balanced, especially if you're a bodybuilder, if you're a figure competitor. Obviously, physique athletes, they hide their legs, but still work them, guys. Still work them. Jeff said he could put on a clinic on that topic. Yep. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Julie hitting me with another one. Julie said, strategies or suggestions or tips to keep glutes full when dieting and make sure they still lean out yet don't lose too much muscle. So this kind of ties in to what we were just talking about with dominant body parts. Now, if you are a bikini competitor and you're worried about your glutes, losing too much muscle. Maybe it is a good idea to train them a lot in the off season and, really grow them, because we know that eventually there might be a time where during prep we might start to lose a little bit of muscle. So if you build a certain body part up, and then you might lose just a little bit during prep, and then it kind of normalizes and evens out, that actually may be a good idea. So I would really recommend just training as hard as you can, and then if you were to lose a little bit of muscle in your contest prep, then it'll come from somewhere. Isn't necessarily going to come from the glutes, not necessarily, but it might. So that might help balance your physique out. All right, Garrett, finishing up. If anybody has any other questions here, I'll kind of give you the last question warning if you want to throw one more question at me before I get to Garrett's. Otherwise, we will wrap this one up here shortly. And then Garrett asked, with the Arnold being next week, and likely many of us attending, how do you suggest tackling training and dieting during the long weekend events? So number one, training, for those of you who have not been to the Arnold, it is a madhouse at the gyms that are right around the venue. With core, we predominantly do not stay close to the venue, although that may be a bitch to get there in the morning and to go home at night. It makes it great for training. So I would recommend training outside of the city if you are staying there multiple days in a row. I don't know where we're training. Please don't ask me. That will be a last-minute decision. So train outside the city. You have plenty of time. You don't need to be at the Arnold Classic from open to close. You'll be able to see plenty. So just, plan out your time. I would personally, recommend, going in the late afternoon into the evening time, because that's when we usually go. And it's not that crazy. It might be crazy all day long, who knows. But the gyms that we've gone to outside the city are manageable. You could find room to work. It's no problem. Now, the more important one, dieting. Garrett's sub-comment said, especially sampling the products over the convention. So yes, they are handing out loads and loads of free shit. They have samples of everything. If you are dieting and somebody hands you free samples of Quest bars or protein bars or Len and Larry's cookies or whatever kind of shit that they have, those calories still do count. Every sip of protein or whatever that you're taking, it will add up. So just be mindful. And I feel like you probably actually won't eat as much if you are at the Arnold anyway. So as far as like keeping track, don't overdo it when it comes to the samples. Obviously enjoy yourself, but don't be stupid, when it comes to, eating. If you're getting chocolate-covered protein bars thrown at you, or cookies thrown at you, you obviously know that those are going to be high in calories. So try to save those for later, honestly. A lot of the stuff, you can just get and throw it in your bag and, and let it span out for days and weeks. Like, you don't necessarily need to eat it all on that 1 or 2 days that you're there. That's the great part of going to the Arnold, is just getting all those samples and then trying them for an extended period of time. So guys, I think that's actually going to wrap this video up today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. They were great questions as always. Next week, we will be back same time, same place. Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If anybody has a topic that they would like to see, just shoot me a message. If not, I'll come up with it on my own. But this week's open questions were great. I do appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful night, and we will see you very soon.